Hello there, gang, and welcome to another episode of Displaying Model Behaviour, the Earth's mightiest action figure video podcast. So take off your pants, crack a beer, and let's talk toys. Let's talk about The Punisher Kills the Marvel Universe. This is a feel-good romp from 1995 from the creative, dastardly mind of one of my favourite writers, Garth Ennis. Now, Garth Ennis, for anyone who knows his work, will know that he loves superheroes, in that they are great characters that he can use to do horrible things to. Garth Ennis loves nothing more than deconstructing and destroying superheroes, which is kind of an odd thing that you would think Marvel probably wouldn't be a good fit for him. But occasionally they love to just let him play in their sandbox and abuse some of their most loved characters. And there's no greater example than The Punisher Kills the Marvel Universe, a one-shot delight chronicling how Frank Castle eliminates every single one of the characters we love dearly. So let's talk about it. So our comic opens in the past with a young Matt Murdock getting the tar pounded out of him by a bunch of bullies, but luckily for him, in this particular version of the Marvel Universe, he happens to live in the same neighborhood as little Frankie Castle, and the young Punisher confronts the bullies, rescue Matt Murdock, and quite frankly beats the piss out of them. And then he says to Matt, "Kid, you gotta fight back." Don't know why I was calling him kid. I mean, they're both kids. I think that might have just been some editorializing on my part. But still, he says, "You gotta fight back." And Matt Murdock's like, "Oh, geez, mister, my dad says I'm not supposed to fight." To which, even as a young kid, the Punisher's so salty. I mean, he's not the Punisher at this point, he's just Frankie Castle, but he's like, "Your dad's wrong." That'd be kind of funny if, like, as an 8-year-old kid, he was like, "That's not how the world is. You gotta fight back." But still, he tells little Matty Murdock, being a pacifist isn't gonna get you anywhere. Flash forward to the present day of this Marvel universe, and the X-Men and Avengers and all assorted Marvel heroes are having a huge knockdown, drag-out fight in Central Park with the Brood. And this is your typical superhero slugfest, just as you would imagine. But this time, racing towards the scene is Frank Castle, along with a whole military group who I imagine are just a strike team who work in the Marvel universe trying to corral and police these superhuman kind of fights. And Frank, of course, is slightly more invested in this because his family are at that park. Now, by the time Frank gets to the park, this is kind of interesting because it's a good sort of moral dilemma, although honestly, I don't think it's really much of a dilemma. Daredevil, being holier than thou as he is chastising the X-Men, saying, "You come in here with your laser blast and your explosions, and there's no warning the kids, the women, the children, all these things. You don't care about what's going on." And Cyclops is like, "We literally just this second found out about an alien invasion. Like, I don't understand that argument where Daredevil's like, "You should have been more careful." It's like, bitch, aliens were invading New York. Have you seen what the Brood look like? They're made of teeth. They were going to eviscerate everyone in their path. Did you want us to fill out like a health and safety form before we did this? Like, pipe down, okay? Go play with your billy clubs. That's why I'm not an X-Man. Of course, being a lawyer, Daredevil wouldn't make that argument against Cyclops if he didn't have some evidence to back it up. And luckily for him, there's a horribly mutilated woman with her children just nearby. Yeah, I'll give you one guess as to who the husband is. Don't worry, he's just about to turn up. It's Frank Castle. And of course, Cyclops is like, geez, are they yours? Ooh, sorry. Yeah, Cyclops never had the best bedside manner. To which Castle, quick as a flash, pulls out his gun. "You're sorry?" Bang! And then we're off to the races. And he doesn't just stop with Cyclops, he opens fire on all the superheroes in the park, gunning a couple down before Wolverine slashes him with his adamantium claws. And of course he's wearing Kevlar and whatnot. I don't think Kevlar would really stand up to adamantium, but I guess he just got lucky. And Colossus grabs Wolverine before he can full on eviscerate Castle. "Let me go! He killed her! He killed them all!" From the panel, it looks like he shoots Shadowcat and nails Hawkeye right between the eyes. "He killed them all!" So the Punisher is of course arrested, but you'd never guess who his lawyer happens to be. Yes, it is everyone's favourite blind vigilante, Matt Murdock. But of course, he has some pretty hefty charges levelled against him. Pretty much massacring a whole bunch of superheroes in broad daylight in front of multiple witnesses. You're not going to get off with a slap on the wrist. In this case, Frank gets life imprisonment, but we all know it's not going to be that simple. So when Frank gets driven in the paddy wagon to the prison, he's very surprised when they open the back doors only to find that he's standing in the mountains and confronted by a gnarly, scarred up old man who introduces himself as Kesselring.
My name is Kesselring. If you'll come with me, I can explain everything.
Hold it.
Or have you something better to do?
Now Kesselring welcomes Frank Castle to his home and describes to him the story of how he got his horrible, gruesome injuries, that being Dr. Doom throwing the Human Torch into his car. That'll do it. And also he introduces Frank to his friends. And this really gives Garth Ennis a chance to let loose on his deconstruction as to what it would really be like living in a superhuman world.
Mrs. McKinney had a building thrown at him by the Thing.
Wait a minute, thrown at him? Well, that is what it says.
Mr. Krieg was attacked by Wolverine in a case of mistaken identity.
Actually, I can understand being caught in the crossfire of a superhuman fight, but actually if it's straight up mistaken identity, genuinely, I would be pissed about that.
Mrs. Pierce was run over by the Ghost Rider.
That's actually pretty funny.
Miss Dunn lost her parents when the Hulk went on a rampage. Mr. Marcel was crippled by Magneto, and so on.
And due to all these indiscretions, Kesselring turns to Frank and he says,
I want you to punish them.
Now this is an interesting angle that I think really only exists in the Garth Ennis type stories. And honestly, I call BS on this. Because yes, in the real world, of course, every superhuman fight would be like the end of freaking Man of Steel, where they're just plowing into buildings and people are dying by the thousands. But we don't want that to be the Marvel Universe. So I think that when we read comics, we simply kind of suspend our disbelief that people just don't get hurt. When the Hulk goes on a rampage and throws a car in the air, we assume that A, the car is empty, and B, it's going to land somewhere that no one's going to get hurt. Similarly, when, Captain America throws crossbones through a building, it just so happens that there's no one standing around, there's no collateral damage. That's just how it goes. That's the luck of the Marvel Universe, and we love living in that sort of world because it makes sense. Because if superhero comics were realistic, they wouldn't be superhero comics. They would just be comics about the same world that we live in. If Peter got bitten by a radioactive spider, he would either die or nothing would happen. If the Fantastic Four got hit by cosmic rays, they'd probably, get sick. That's, if you want to see that, that's like another story called Ruins, which is just a depressing, awful tale about misery. Thanks, Marvel. They went through this little emo phase in the 90s, clearly. But still, Garth Ennis is the one who's like, no, because actually this would happen. It's like, yeah, we know that would actually happen, but that's not why we read comics. We don't read comics to read what would actually happen. We read comics for a fun fantasy. But that's why occasionally, I guess, with these one-shot Elseworld stories, it's just Marvel's chance to say, yeah, go on, have some fun, be the devil's advocate, say what would actually happen. And of course, people would be getting killed left, right, and center. That's what would happen. So the first superhumans that Frank Castle is going to take down are Spider-Man and Venom. I think it's kind of smart doing Spider-Man first, just because that's going to be a real gut punch, because it's Spider-Man. Everyone loves Spidey, except Frank Castle. So we find Spider-Man fighting Venom in the sewers, and I do give Garth Ennis credit that at least he thought about Spider-Man's spider sense, because spider sense is the ultimate plot armor, which writers can kind of choose to ignore whenever they want to, have Spider-Man get hit by something. But at least in this case, Spidey's busy fighting Venom when all of a sudden he says, whoa, hey, my spider sense is going off, time out. But Venom's just like, nah, we're all good, buddy. So all these different electro type things spring out of everywhere, and he even goes so far as to have Spider-Man say, look, Venom, I can't dodge these and fight you at the same time. And they both get electrocuted. So I appreciate the fact that he actually went the extra mile to circumvent the spider sense. So these electro barbs fry both Spider-Man and Venom, and so casual. Cool Hand Luke, Frank Castle, just walks over to Eddie Brock, who of course the symbiote is kind of sliding off of him. Pop! Shoots him in the face, and then saunters over to Spider-Man, who's, half cooked like bacon. And, Spidey says, who are you? Why? Dude, WTF, seriously?
Because somebody had to be first.
Oh, okay, I'll admit, that was quite badass. And after brutally shooting the Amazing Spider-Man in the face, Frank goes back to the battle van where we also meet Micro, which is a fun nod to the 90s kind of Punisher setup. And Micro in this reality lost both his legs when Dr. Octopus broke into a missile silo and Micro refused to give him the keys. Again, in Garth Ennis's writing, I guess that's what Doc Ock does. I mean, it all depends on who's writing. Sometimes he's a benevolent scientist who just, goes as far as he has to. And when Garth Ennis is writing him, he's like, give me the key or I'll rip your legs off. Okay then. I guess in Garth Ennis' universe, everyone always calls everyone else's bluff. Must be terrible to play poker with him. The next vignette we have is the Hulk. And this is a super fun one that I do wonder if it's been addressed before or not, because it's the easiest solution for anyone to kill the Hulk. You would have thought someone like the leader would have thought of this in a New York minute. While the Hulk is on another one of his rampages in New York, Frank simply stands back, watches it all unfold, and shoots off a little tracking dart that either, pierces the Hulk's skin, which I'm guessing maybe it wouldn't, so therefore let's just say it sticks to the Hulk. And when Hulk calms down and wanders off, Frank just follows him. Then lo and behold, what does he find? A very human Bruce Banner sleeping rough in the street. So just wanders over there and he's like, hey, wakey wakey. Bang! There you go. Problem solved. You're welcome, leader. Didn't need a giant testicle head to figure out the easiest way to kill the Hulk. Now, I'll grant you, of course, if this was Immortal Hulk, well, the clue's in the title, the modern version of the Hulk, that wouldn't work so well. As soon as the sun goes down and the moon comes up, that bullet's just gonna bing out of his cranium, and there's gonna be one very angry Jade Giant. So luckily, for this version of the Punisher, that's not the case. So Frank's next target is the Kingpin. So he's going after both sides here. Basically anyone who's involved in superhuman activity is on his naughty list, and Kingpin is right at the top. So he gets Micro to basically destroy the Kingpin's entire empire via the mechanics of computers and hacking and all that, and Frank goes in to do the dirty work. And dirty work is what it is. And ironically, while fighting the Kingpin, Wilson Fisk actually says,
I took your threat to be exclusively against the superpowered community castle. I applaud you. I acquired a stockpile of weaponry specifically to counter their power for your use. I'd have assisted you with the full weight of my empire. The empire which your internet savages have dismantled over the last 3 days. You've taken everything from me, but now it's my turn.
So it comes down to the Kingpin's mass against Frank Castle's bullets. And luckily for Castle, he has just one more in the chamber that he needs to very gruesomely finish off Wilson Fisk. And in a sight or a scene or a tableau, if you will, that we've actually seen a couple of times in Garth Ennis comics, Castle is left somewhat trapped beneath the body of the person who he's just murdered. And that gives the police a perfect opportunity to rush into the room and say, freeze!
Relax. I ain't going anywhere.
So, second verse, same as the first, Frank gets sent to prison for life and once again is broken out by his benefactor. To which the guy simply says, hey, money talks, although the prison people are getting greedier, so you might want to move this operation into high gear. And Frank, he only has high gear. So using technology that he pilfered from the Kingpin, he decides to set his sights pretty high. He's going after Dr. Freakin' Doom. So he uses an image inducer to make it look like he's flying the Fantasticar with the Fantastic Four into Latveria, which I guess we'll just sort of assume that Dr. Doom is like, hey, it's the Fantastic Four. I don't like them, but I'm gonna let them in. And again, it's the suspension of disbelief, where it's like, of course, Doom would know that it's not really the Fantastic Four. It's freaking Dr. Doom. But this is Garth Ennis writing, where every superhuman is an idiot. That's something that always kind of grinds my gears a little bit with Garth Ennis. It's like, it is fun to poke fun every now and then, but it does kind of stick in my craw when these heroes and villains and characters you've been reading for decades are just made to look like complete and utter jackasses. But still, it's kind of fun. So Frank parachutes into Latveria and confronts Doom, and Doom, unsurprisingly, beats the holy living hell out of him.
Puny insect, you are as nothing before the might of Doom. You seek to creep upon me. I was tracking your craft the instant you crossed my country's borders. Your subterfuge was useless.
Oh, shut my mouth. I guess Doom did know it was him. Probably should have read on ahead before doing the little camera bit. Well done, Garth Ennis. You made me look like an idiot too. And that's something I can do myself. But Frank, ever resourceful, had a Batman-style utility belt and just the right tool for the right job. As Doom hoists him up above his head, he takes out a magnetic mine. Bing! Drops it right on Doom's forehead. Kablamo! And luckily that does the whole alien invasion type effect where you take out the big boss and then all the drones die as well. So that explodes all of the Doom bots. And then Doom, in fairness to his armor, is still alive, but he's a little worse for wear. Frank's going to deal with that though in quite an amusing kind of fashion. Takes off a very handy hammer and chisel that are kind of on the wall. And he's like, right, how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? That's an American reference for you.
Magnetic mine won't dent that thick head, huh? That's okay. We've got all the time in the world.
So, being the magpie that he is, Frank Castle then goes on into Doom's stash and helps himself to all the goodies, including a nuclear bomb. I bet he's got a good idea for that one. So we skip over to the moon where we find literally the entire mutant population, pretty much. We've got the Brotherhood of Mutants, we've got Charles Xavier's X-Men, X-Factor, X-Force, Sinister, Apocalypse. The entire X-Men editorial team is on the moon. So it's going to be a case of all the birds with one stone.
Ironic indeed that our final conflict should be played out here upon the moon, beneath the air-sealed dome you have erected, far from Earth, exactly where humanity has always longed to banish us. It was you who chose the moon as our battlefield and set up this dome, was it not? We simply followed the directions of the challenge that you sent us and came here. Why play games at this most critical, most apocalyptic hour, Storm? We sent no challenge, you did. And we followed it. But if each of us had answered an invitation to war that neither side had sent, who? Wait a minute. What's that?
Boom! That was easy. Now there's a giant step for mankind. To be fair, they did call themselves the Children of the Atom. At least Frank Castle has a sense of humor. One person who wasn't on the moon was Wolverine, who was chilling out in Japan, and he does not take the death of all of his friends and family very well.
Everything's gone wrong these past couple of years. Can't believe it. All my buddies die on the moon, and me in Japan on a lousy wild goose chase.
Actually, is it wrong that I read this in the voice of Rick from Rick and Morty?
The Avengers, fried in a teleporter accident, Morty. Someone floods the vault, drowns every creepo holding there. Captain America's supposed to be investigating, but he ain't got it. I mean, I even heard they found Mr. Fantastic dead in the dumpster, Morty.
You're breaking my heart. It's almost like Frank's starting to enjoy this. Now, unfortunately for Wolverine, there is no one in the Marvel Universe who Garth Ennis relishes making into a punching bag more than Wolverine, and he gets his shots in on this one. So Frank Castle shows Wolvie his scars and he's like, hey, what's up, remember me? And also, of course, in Wolverine's little drunken soliloquy, we find out that all the villains in the raft have been murdered. The Avengers have all been murdered, and Mr. Fantastic is dead in a dumpster, so Frank has well and truly been busy. And I know I'd bore you all to tears if I just kept on repeating myself, but in this instance I will say again, if this was the real Marvel Universe, Wolverine would kill Frank in like 1 second. But it's not, it's Garth Ennis' Marvel Universe, so they have a good back and forth fight. At least Wolverine is absolutely hammered, so there's some believability that Frank might hold his own. And it finally finishes with Wolvie getting launched into a very convenient nearby power electricity generator that literally fries the flesh off of his bones. And if some terrible hack writer was writing that, they would probably say that Wolverine could regenerate from a single cell inside his adamantium skeleton. And anyone who read the post-Civil War stories would attest, that's bullshit. We're then treated to a big old double splash page of Frank pretty much murdering his way through the remaining heroes and villains of the Marvel Universe, with his benefactor detailing how it's been 3 years. And in that time there's pretty much no one left, and Frank gets himself arrested once again, and once again, one of the few remaining superheroes is his lawyer, Matt Murdock. And in a rather touching scene, we actually get some glimpses into Matt Murdock's character and why he is the hero that he is.
I've killed 500 times. I'm a mass murderer. The system failed me, Murdoch. It couldn't protect my family. It couldn't punish the guilty. It couldn't even hold me. So why do you care?
In God's name, Frank. Because somebody has to.
I'm not stopping, Matt. Never. Forget about me.
So Frank's back out on the streets, and this time it's Captain America, and they're having a slugfest in an alley, and it's Frank's experience in Vietnam that gets him the win on this one. Cap easily handles Frank, knocking him back, throwing him around, and smashing him into a corner. Both Frank Castle and Garth Ennis are very familiar with Vietnam, one slightly more personally than the other. But with that in mind, Frank mentions to Steve Rogers that one of the first lessons he learnt was to always stash a weapon where you might need it. So with Cap's guard down, Frank simply reaches over to the gun that he had in that alley and BAM! Shoots the Star-Spangled Avenger right in the head. So with the Sentinel of Liberty pushing up daisies, there is just one final member of the superhero community to finish off. So Frank goes over to his employers to tell them that it's one and then I'm done. He shows up, he's like,
that's it, I've just got Daredevil and then I'm out. I'm gonna go home, take off my pants, crack a beer, and relax. No more killing for me.
And unfortunately, Kesslinger, or whatever his name was, is like, whoa. You seem to be under a little misconception here, Frank. Okay, this wasn't a little temporary arrangement, alright? You're not a subcontractor. We own you now, okay? Because what makes you think that once you kill off that last superhero, more aren't just gonna show up? It's not just like a little fad, alright? They're here now. So you, quite frankly, can get ready for this. You're a bitch. Okay? You are our murder machine. Whenever anyone turns up, you are going to be on our beck and call, alright? You're going to be our beck and call boy. And when they show up, it is your job to murder them. Frank doesn't take that too well. Without even skipping a beat, BAM! Frank draws his gun and blows Kesslinger's head off. Because he doesn't have a horse in this race, so he's happy to murder the guy who was bailing him out and allowing him to do this because he doesn't like him. He was just facilitating his quest for revenge. And then he turns his attention to the other scarred up people in the room.
You people have let your pain run way past its course. You're nothing but a bunch of bitter old fools. If I ever hear from any of you again, I'll come back and kill you all.
You people have let your pain run way past its course. Hypocrite warning. Frank, this is the pot. I'd like to introduce you to the kettle.
Unbelievable! You know, you guys are really taking this whole revenge thing too far.
Jeez Louise, Frank. So Frank has one name left on his hit list. Daredevil, and he sets out to Hell's Kitchen to finish the job. And of course, Dee Dee, he ain't hard to find. He confronts Frank Castle and they have a little moment together. And this is interesting because Daredevil knows who Frank is. He's Matt Murdock. He knows him from his childhood. He says, well, we're back here where it all began. And of course, Frank is like, nah, this began 5 years ago in Central Park when my family died. And Daredevil, he's keeping his cards close to his chest. He's like, no, Frank, it started here. And they go at it mano a mano, tooth and claw, fists and fury, and Daredevil actually gets the better of Frank Castle, as he should. He knocks Frank to the ground, and in that moment, with the Punisher down, Daredevil, Matt Murdock being the good guy that he is, even after everything that's happened, he still tries to reach out to Frank Castle. Frank, somewhere under all that hate and fury, you still know right from wrong. Don't damn yourself by crushing that out. I'm begging you. Let it end. Like hell. Like hell! Frank. Matt? Frank discovers, when it's all too late, that the final superhero was actually the human being who he was friends with in his childhood. The one person who could have brought him back from the edge. If that's not ironic, then I don't know what irony is. Seriously, I'm not sure I know what irony is. So that might be wrong. It's definitely not like the Alanis Morissette song. She genuinely didn't know what she was talking about. A traffic jam when you're already late is just annoying. It's not ironic.
There's
always someone under the mask, Frank. But you killed us.
You killed us all.
No, Matt. There's one more to go.
The end. And folks, that does it for The Punisher Kills the Marvel Universe. A fun romp for all the family. I told you were going to be in for quite a wild ride. It's funny, I was actually going to do this much sooner, but it would have come out right around Christmas, and I was like, this is not a Christmassy theme. But January is a pretty lame month, so I thought, yeah, you know what? I'll just add to the misery. Don't worry, guys. Spring is around the corner, and the world is only going to get better and brighter. And maybe I'll do some happy stories to go with it. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see here and you want to see more, then join the 6-1 Clicks by clicking the like, share, and subscribe buttons. And if you want to go one step beyond, don't forget to smash that notification bell. Seriously, I almost forgot, but now that I'm making a second point to say it, hopefully that'll kind of like register and like do the thing. Do the thing if you got the guts. And as Randy Savage said at the start of WrestleMania 9, didn't make sense then, doesn't make sense now. Say everything twice.
Say everything twice, yeah.
Anyway, yeah, like, share, subscribe, smash that notification bell. And also, if you want to go one step beyond, a little bit further to support the channel, you can do by going over to patreon.com/displaying model behavior. Over there, I've got a whole bunch of exclusive videos, and I'm now finally updating them all really regularly. So new reviews, comments, all sorts of stuff you're going to find on there, including a new review of the Marvel Legends Bastion figure that came out with the Sentinel HasLab, and also a massive unboxing video where I tear into an quite frankly amazing, seriously unbelievable gift that a friend of mine, friend of the channel, sent to me that included Mezco and Mafex and freaking Hot Toys figures. Unbelievable. Still, that blows my mind. You can watch that unboxing on Patreon. And also, finally, if you want to pick up a badass Displaying Model Behavior t-shirt, you can do over at teespring.com. Check the link in the description below. And if you do get one, then send me a picture on Instagram, because I love to see folks wearing the merchandise. Genuinely, for just some random schlub in his room filming videos, to see folks around the world wearing the merchandise genuinely blows my mind. I love that. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, keep displaying model behavior.